Welcome to another program of Dusting Off the Mirror, presented by myself, Lachlan Tatum. As I've often been at pains to point out that I'm not preaching. I'm just talking about the Bible, which is, in my estimation, a tremendous guide for man's behavior, attitude, his thought, his intentions. And I think if we follow the teachings of the Bible, the deeper teachings of the Bible, not just the superficial look at it, we will be better people. So for the past couple of weeks, we've been looking at the book of Genesis, and we are now on chapter 9. My intention is to go right through the entire Bible. I hope I live to be able to complete that task. We are in Genesis chapter 9, and after we are looking at what happened after the devastating flood. We are in Genesis chapter 9, where we are right now. We hear God saying the same very words that he said in Genesis chapter 1 and verse 22. He's repeating what he said there. And there we see God, after the flood, saying once again, "Be fruitful and multiply." He's saying once again, he said it to Adam, and now he's repeating it to Noah, after all the people on the earth, except those who were in the ark, were wiped out. He's using the same words he said to Adam and Eve, "Be fruitful and multiply." And after the flood, we find him saying the same thing, not to Adam, but to Noah this time, and his sons, to Noah and his sons in Genesis chapter 9 and verse 1. Be fruitful and multiply. The very same words he said to Adam and Eve. Starting over, starting afresh. New life on the planet. Now a number of things are about to happen here. A number of things are about to take place. And we must remember that man and animals were in the ark together for a long time. For a long time they were in the ark together. But after the flood, things changed. And God said to man, "From now on, animals are going to be afraid of you, man. You know, from now on, animals are going to be afraid of you. Every living bird and animal will be afraid of you, Noah, and every bird and animal will be afraid of human beings in general." And it happens. Animals are afraid of man. For the most part, if not totally complete part. I think that even when animals attack man, animals don't attack man for food. Animals are afraid of man. Living creatures are going to be afraid of you, God says to Noah. And instructions were given from God to man about food. How to go about dealing with food. Remember that before the flood, Adam and Eve were in a garden. Before the flood, Adam and Eve were in a garden. Before the flood, Adam and Eve ate fruits. I will repeat it. Before the flood, Adam and Eve ate fruits. There is no indication that they ate any animal. There is nothing recorded in the Bible. If anybody has found anything that is recorded here, let me know. Where they ate beasts, where they ate animals. They ate fruit, as far as we know, as far as the Bible indicates. Now, after the flood, man will be permitted to eat animal flesh. But God is instructing man not to eat any blood. This is very interesting. No blood consumption. Eat animals, but no eating or drinking, in this case, of any blood. No swallowing of blood. Remember that before the flood, man ate fruits. God gave fruits to Adam and Eve. But after the flood, he is permitting man to eat animal flesh, but no blood. Then God begins to talk about murder. Man shedding man's blood. Vengeance is discussed in chapter 9 and verse 5. If you have your Bibles, you can look at it. Vengeance is discussed there. Then in verse 13, God promises not to repeat the flood or a flood-like situation. And God placed a rainbow in the sky as a sign that all that he said was going to be just as he promised it would. That was the rainbow. The rainbow. Man had never seen a rainbow before. The thing about God here is that God seemed to have a liking of connecting one thing to things that man is already familiar with. He's connecting things. He takes what man is familiar with and adding things to it. So he is connecting one thing with another. We have the rain. Man is very, familiar with the rain, the water, because the floods came for the first time. Before the flood, the Bible says a mist went up out of the ground and watered the garden. But after the flood, things changed. The thing about God here is that he likes to connect one thing to things that man already knows. God is aiming to keep man's memory alert and alive to the history of human experience. God is trying here not to get man to keep remembering his experience. That's why he's giving him signs. Signs, don't do this, and he puts a sign. He gave a rainbow. Now, everything God says is connected to an experience that man has already had. Let me repeat that in case I sound bungling. Everything God says is connected to something that man already knows something about. Nothing that God says or does is just out of the blue. They are all connected to something that man is already familiar with. God is a good teacher. right? A good teacher, that's what a good teacher does. A good teacher builds on what children already know. If you're a terrible teacher, you're going to introduce things that the children don't know anything about. But a good teacher will build on what the students already know. And God is doing exactly that. So he says, be fruitful and multiply. That is not something new. He has said it before. He said it to Adam and Eve. They knew how to do that. They knew how to be fruitful and multiply. That was not anything new to them. Being fruitful and multiplying was not anything new. So that when God told Noah that he's putting a rainbow in the sky, Noah already knew what rain was. Let me repeat that. When God told Noah that he was putting a rainbow in the sky, Noah had never seen a rainbow before, but he knew what rain was. Maybe the word bow was new to Noah. I don't know. I'm sure, I'm almost want to be sure that he probably knew what a bow was. I don't know. Maybe he had tied bows before. And maybe he did not know what a bow was. I don't know. But he certainly knew what rain was. For he had just come through the heaviest downpour of rain that man had seen up to that time in history. And I believe man has not seen any rain that covered the entire earth since that. So God is a great teacher because he put the bow in the sky. Noah had never, I can safely say, had never seen any kind of bow in the sky. But he knew what rain was. So God called it a rainbow because he's a good teacher, since Noah already knew what rain was. Now he's learning a new word, rainbow. Ain't that great? You could learn how to teach from God. He's a great teacher. Even when God introduces man to the concept of the bow in the sky, he is connecting it to something that man already was familiar with. He made the connection to the rain. And that is what good teaching is. Connecting things that are new to what you already know. And I hope the teachers will get that lesson from God clear in their mind. Do not teach children anything new until you have already prepared them with the proper foundation. You add to what they already know. Anyway, I'm not teaching teachers how to teach. So we're going to move on. God is teaching teachers how to teach. And this is how growth takes place. Connecting to what is already known. As the Bible says, precept upon precept upon precept. People don't know the Bible very much these days, so I don't know if they know that is in the Bible. Now, new concepts connected to concepts that are already familiar. Great teacher. When you teach following this rule, when you follow this pattern, there is nothing that is difficult to learn. When you connect things that are already known, you're sure that they know it because they have seen it, they have witnessed it. You add a new concept to what they already known. What is already known, it is not difficult to learn. The new thing is not difficult to learn. And there is another thing that God teaches right after the flood. He teaches another lesson right after the flood because this is a new territory for them. This is a new territory for man. Remember, Adam and Eve were only introduced to fruits as food. I said that already. Adam and Eve were only introduced to fruits as food according to Genesis. And we saw Cain and Abel fighting over whose sacrifice was accepted and whose sacrifice was rejected. They were fighting over that. And one person ended up killing another. I don't have to tell you who killed whom. Right? Up to that time, there was no image of anybody eating meat. Up to that time, when Cain killed Abel, there is no message in the Bible, no word anywhere in the Bible where people ate meat. They ate fruits. If you find anywhere where people eat meat before the flood, let me know. After the flood, meat became food. Not just fruits. Meat was added to the menu. Meat became part of the food chain after the flood. If you find anybody eating meat before the flood, let me know. So man has to be taught not to behave like a beast. Man is now eating beasts. He has to be taught how not to behave like the beast that he's eating. Because man is not a beast and should not behave like a beast. Man must not have blood dripping from his jaws and his chin. God did not want man having blood dripping from his jawbone and from his chin. He must not have that. He must eat. Man must, meat became food. But he must eat. Man must learn to eat with dignity and with grace and style and decorum. Read the Bible and you'll find there's no blood dripping anywhere. Right? And cleanliness. Man, God, this is what God is teaching. Cleanliness and decency and manners. You can't be eating meat and having all the blood all over your mouth. No. Right? And cleanliness and decency and manners and common sense. Eat with sense. And eat with some order. And that's what God is trying to teach man. How to eat decently. How to eat with decency. Oh, you mean God ain't interested in? Yes, he is. And in verse 8 of Genesis chapter 9, God is essentially saying, I am watching how you eat. I am watching how you eat. God ends this discussion by saying, you are accountable. Folks, you are accountable. He's saying, I am keeping record of even how you prepare your food, how you eat your food. Okay? And he is actually saying, folks, human beings, after the flood, after Adam and Eve and the other people mess up everything, he's saying, have some dignity, have some respect in your behavior. Have some dignity and respect in your behavior. And in verse 7 of Genesis chapter 10, verse 7 of Genesis chapter 10, God is saying that the image of yourself that you present, the image that you present of yourself, how you present yourself is important. He's saying in verse 6 that the image that you have of yourself is important. What image do you have of yourself? I have to ask myself, what image do I have of myself? And it does not matter what age you are. It does not matter what social class you are, what your social status is. We as human beings, God is saying here in Genesis, must present the best image of ourselves possible. The best image of ourselves possible at all times. Dress good. Eat properly. Set the table properly. Present the best image of yourself as possible. Present a top-class image. Top-class behavior. Top-class dignity. Top-class image. As we close, Genesis chapter 9 verse 7 is telling us that it's only after we have learned how to be decent and in order, it's only after we have learned how to be clean and careful and peaceful and accountable, it is only after you can eat decently like a human being and not like a beast. It is only after you get some dignity in yourself, it is only then that you should be fruitful and multiply. You can't be getting children and don't have any decency and don't have any self-control and don't have any self-management. That's what Genesis 9 is saying. And I dare say that it is why we have so many problems in the world today. It is because people who don't even know how to eat and live respectfully and decently and in order. People who don't know how to eat properly, decently, and live respectfully and decently and in order are today getting children. No decency whatsoever. In anything. Lots of people. And those people are the worst type of people to be getting children. I trust today that something was gathered from this passage of scripture, which I find to be quite powerful, that the God of the Bible is even instructing people down to how you eat. It's amazing. No blood dripping down your mouth, drooling down your mouth. That is only symbolic of what indecency is. And here in Genesis, God is saying, be decent. Behave decently. Act decent. Eating is only a symbol of decency. Don't let the blood be running down your face. Be decent. I trust that something was gleaned from this great book and that it will make us better people. All of us, including myself. My name is Lachlan Tatum and I look forward to having you again on another program when we dust off the mirror. Peace.